What is going on, survivors? We are back today with another 101. This is actually going to be an updated one of a 101 that we already did before. The idea was that I had a lot of questions specifically regarding a key things that we talked about. So we're going to talk about how to hatch eggs, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth as far as how to get the actual eggs that you're going to use to hatch them. So let's dive right into it. This shouldn't be a terribly long video, and like I said, it's pretty much an updated version. So let's talk about fertilized eggs versus not fertilized eggs. So what we have on the ground with this red smoke coming off of it is a fertilized egg that I need to pick up, actually. It had that red smoke coming off of it. That is important to note. I'm actually going to throw this thing in a fridge real quick so that we can talk about some other things. And while that's going on, eggs have an extended spoil time when you put them in a refrigerator. So right now I got plenty of time, as you can see, before this guy's going to expire. Going a little bit out of order if I wanted to than I wanted to, but here we are. So anyway, there are a couple different ways to hatch eggs without using mods in Ark. Now obviously if you have mods on, there's a huge load of ways to do it, but without mods there's a few ways to do it. These are two of the easiest ways. There's a few other ways that you can do this, but that's pretty much it. So the way animals work in Ark is wild animals will occasionally just lay eggs. These eggs that they'll lay, and I'm going to say, we'll hang out and go back and forth with these raptors to see if they drop one, because tamed animals will do this too. They'll drop eggs that are not fertilized. Now, if the eggs are not fertilized, those are not eggs that you can hatch. It means if you go out and find it like hanging around on the ground and you just say, oh, I got this egg, I can hatch it, it's not going to work because it's not a fertilized egg. What you're looking for is that specific description. And what I mean by that is if we go back in this fridge and hover over this egg, it specifically says it's a fertilized raptor egg. Fertilized raptor egg. So if it says it's a normal egg, if it just says egg, it's not going to do it for you. If it just says raptor egg, it's not a fertilized egg. It's not how that works. Those eggs are used more for kibble and other recipes. You need fertilized eggs for this stuff to work. Now, once you have a fertilized egg, which you would get by mating animals. Now, what you do is you have a male and a female of the same species. Go into the behavior, you can enable mating, and then you can do the same thing to a female nearby, and then eventually over time will have an egg. Now if it's a mammal, you'll have a live birth and you'll have like a little baby dino right there that you have to mess with. But the long and short of it is, with egg laying dinos, you put them on mating, they'll mate, a little bar will go by, you'll pick up the egg, that'll be the end of it. You really only need one male for that thing to happen. So I have like two females and a male right here. So if I go over to this female, enable mating, the bar will go up, and once that bar goes all the way to 100%, this female will drop a fertilized egg. I'll pick that egg and then I can hatch it. So let's talk about actually hatching it, how the hatching of the eggs work. All eggs require a certain temperature, an ideal temperature range for them to be able to hatch. This is why if you take a fertilized egg and put it on the ground, it may say it's too hot or that it's too cold. I can drop this one on the ground so that I can show you. It's important not to hotkey these, because if you hotkey them and try to drop them, you'll actually eat them. You don't want to eat them. So let's say I drop this raptor egg right here. So it's actually incubating. So right here in the wild, it's actually in its preferred temperature zone. You see the incubation bar going down, the health bar staying exactly where it should be. This is good. Now there are a lot of different species of eggs that require extreme hot, extreme cold, a lot of different temperatures for these eggs to work. Those things, when you run into those problems, things like wyvern eggs are an extreme example of this, or rock drakes, or the megachelons, like things that require a really high or low temperature to hatch. It's important to use a couple different options if you're not using mods. So one of the options is to use air conditioners. You can put them inside of a room like this, or you can just build them out to the side. As long as they're bunched up and the eggs are close to it, you should be fine there too. So let's give you an example. If I stay outside here with the riot armor on, we see that my hypothermal insulation is at 67 and my hyperthermal is actually -56, which is not going to really be ideal for hatching a lot of eggs. I actually just got lucky with the raptor eggs. But if I get in range in here of the air conditioners and pop my inventory back open, I can now see that both of these things skyrocket up and they're still climbing. So I'm at 613 and 433. What that really means is that the temperature here is just more ideal. Is essentially what we're getting at all this. So basically the way this works, you drop the egg right by the air conditioners, and that's how that, and they'll hatch on their own. You'll pick them out and that'll be the end of it. Air conditioners require power, which means you're going to need a generator, which means you're going to need gasoline, which can require a little bit of effort early on if you're trying to do breeding stuff and you're not in an optimal temperature zone. There's quick and easy fixes to this, and we're going to pause real quick because this raptor finished mating and dropped a fertilized egg. Fertilized eggs from a distance are easily notable because of the red smoke going around them. If these drop like a regular egg, we can kind of go up there. Oh, that was like right on cue. That would be a normal egg. It just randomly drop from time to time. It's just a regular raptor egg. It doesn't have a bar on it, doesn't have anything on it, and that's why. So sometimes you'll see them in the open, sometimes you'll see them within your certain tames dropping them, but they're not going to work for actually hatching them and making dinos. Anywho, back on the topic. So you have this option, the air conditioner, right? It's just, again, can be a little harder to do, especially if you're trying to breed dinos early on without having access to all this stuff. So how do you do it without that stuff? If an egg's too cold, you can light fires next to it. That'll work. If an egg's too hot, you can move towards a colder temperature zone on the maps in order to do that. Ideally, though, what you can do is tame Dimetrodons, and we have a video in our taming catalog about how to tame these guys, but you find them kind of all around, really, to be honest with you. They're very noticeable by the giant sails on them. But the cool thing about these guys is as you upgrade their melee damage, their stat increases. And what I mean by that is they actually give you insulation for both hot and cold as well. So once again, I can show you what I'm talking about here. If I walk out over here, and we see that my hypo and hyper have dropped back down to 67 and negative 56. If I walk over to the Dimetrodons, however, pop this back open, it's now climbing back up, almost as good as it was with air conditioners. Almost as good. And upgrading their melee damage as they level up increases this ability that they do this. So these things are like mobile ACs that all you got to do is feed them. So you can drop the eggs by these guys and have them hatch the eggs for you, which is super, super useful. Anyhow, what we do, we drop the egg, and we make sure it's the fertilized egg. And as we can see in my inventory, there's a distinct difference between the two, right? So the regular egg literally just says it's a raptor egg. It just has a spoil time, that's it. The fertilized egg has an incubation time, has an egg health, has everything on it. That's the egg that hatch for us. Drop the egg on the ground, and as we can see, the incubation bar is going down. This tells me it has a minute and a half left before it's going to hatch. Once it hatches, we want to make sure that we put food in it and stuff like that, but that's pretty much it. That's how we hatch eggs. Now, when babies hatch, they're going to need to be hand fed. So you're going to need to hand feed, specifically put food in the inventory of the baby, and sometimes even force feed it to get its food stat up a little bit so that it doesn't starve to death early on. You need to keep doing this until the baby dino is 10% of the way matured. By that I mean it'll jump from a baby status to a juvenile status. And once it gets to that point, the baby will actually eat out of a trough. So then you can have a feeding trough nearby and just stuff it full of food, and that's the only thing you need to worry about. But we're going to hang out here for less than another minute for this raptor to hatch, and we'll show you what I'm talking about. Down to about 20 seconds. If you're not running mods, it's very important to be near these guys when they hatch, because when they hatch, they can they need to be claimed, and sometimes they'll wander around and you'll lose track of them and you won't find them. And 2, 1. All right, baby raptor. We immediately want to claim the raptor. You can name it if you want to. You can always change the name later, so it's not a big deal. And the behavior, you want to make sure wandering is not on. Probably want to put them on passive or passive flee for the meantime. I'm actually going to put this thing on. Oh, follow is already enabled. Okay, cool. So I want this guy to back up a little bit. There we go. And he's running away. So what I do is I just put meat in her inventory. She'll consume this as she needs it. I can force feed it if I want to, and as you can see, she's already eating it. But if you notice, you can only force feed it past a certain point. So its food right now is at like right about 600. But if I feed it, if I force feed it, and the food stat keeps going up, it plummets down. Basically, there's like a invisible food maximum that babies have that exponentially goes up as they grow up. So it's very important to not let this food stat get down to 0. Just put food in their inventory. They'll eat it on their own. Plus, as they grow up, their weight will get higher, and you'll be able to put more meat on them at a time. Now, as we can see, I have the maturation sped up so that this video doesn't take 900 years. But as you can see, the maturation is just about to change to 10%. The name changes from a baby raptor to a juvenile raptor. At this point, once it's at 10%, it'll actually eat from a trough. I don't need to sit here and put food in its inventory. So it's a little bit less maintenance there. The other thing to note when you're hatching these animals, just like when you are breeding them like general, they have an imprint meter down here at 0%. I also have a timer of 1 hour and 20 minutes and 13 seconds. When that timer hits 0, that juvenile raptor is going to want something. It's going to want care of some sort. It might want to be fed something. It might want to go for a walk. It might just want me to cuddle with it. There's different things that it's going to queue up, and if you do those things for it, its imprint will go up. And as the imprint goes up, what this will do is increase its overall stats in general. So it's very important if you're breeding animals to try to get the best imprint that you can. Again, without mods, can be a little tedious. With mods, this can be incredibly automated for you, depending on which route you want to go down. But now that we have that out of the way, really what I wanted to kind of go over this video again for a couple of reasons. One, this is one of the earlier videos that I did, and maybe the recording quality wasn't all that great. But two, because there was a lot of comments in the first video about people having issues with eggs not hatching. The reason why is because they didn't have fertilized eggs. You always want to make sure that what you have is a fertilized egg. Can't stress that enough. If it doesn't say fertilized in the front of it, it is not a fertilized egg that you can hatch. There are 99.9% of the eggs that you are going to find just randomly out in Ark are not going to be fertilized eggs. You have to mate the dinos. There are a few exceptions to that. Things like wyverns, things like rock drakes. Those animals, magmasaurs on the new Genesis, on the latest Genesis map, those animals lay fertilized eggs in the wild, and that's actually the only way you can get those creatures is by snagging those eggs up and then raising them as your own. Those are few and far between, and there's a few others, but that's essentially it. You're only ever going to be able to hatch fertilized eggs, and you're usually, the majority of the time, only going to be able to get fertilized eggs by mating dinos. So definitely pay attention to that part, but don't just throw away eggs. Eggs can be used to make kibble later on. We have a kibble making video that you guys can check out if you want to, but essentially that's really it. I would highly recommend Dimetrodons if you like. It's just an easier version of taming, especially if you're doing more of a primitive build. Maybe you don't have access to a generator yet, or maybe you don't want to because of the route that you're going. Maybe you're playing it a little bit differently. You don't need gasoline to run this thing. I don't need to keep them run. I just need to keep food in a trough for them to eat out of, just like I would any of my other teams anyway, so this makes it easier. There's definitely mods out there like Superstructures, SS, S+, a few other ones that add a bit more automated processes to it, like hatching eggs for you and storing the eggs for you and things like that. But this is kind of a bare bones, no mods included. This is how we do things. But that's pretty much it. That's how we hatch eggs, guys. I wanted to update this video. I'm probably going to be updating a few other of the 101 videos that we have been, mainly because I feel like we've covered the majority of the 101 stuff, unless somebody has some suggestions about what other videos maybe to do. But I kind of just wanted to rehash some of the earlier ones that I did, because I feel like I didn't maybe, I might have missed a few things judging by the comments that I saw in the videos. That's all, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all on the next one.